coming by Donald Trump. This in an interview to ABC. Again, he's calling the strikes against Iran preemptive strikes. He's saying, essentially in that interview, I got him first. He says, I struck before he could. I got him before he got me. He's also claiming that it was at least twice that the Iranian regime tried to get him, which means tried to assassinate him. But before they could get to him, he got to them. Sagarika, over to you. Just put out that entire ABC interview for us before I can go to my guests on that.
So the correspondent who Donald Trump spoke to is Jonathan Karl, and he is the ABC News chief Washington correspondent. And he's put out details of the conversation. He had 2 phone calls with Donald Trump, and he's spoken about both the calls, and I'm going to take you through both of them. He says, in my second phone call this evening with President Trump, he told me about the death of Ayatollah Khamenei. He said, and he put it in quotes, I got him before he got me. They tried twice. Well, I got him first. These are the quotes of US President Donald Trump to the ABC correspondent Jonathan Karl, who then says that's a reference to what US intelligence believes was a plot to kill Trump in the year 2024. Then he also talks about the other things that Donald Trump told him. Jonathan Karl says, President Trump told me that US had identified possible candidates to take over Iran, but they were killed in the initial attack. The attack was so successful, it knocked out most of the candidates. These are the words of Donald Trump. And then he goes on to detail that Donald Trump told him it's not going to be anybody that we were thinking of because they're all dead. Second or third place is dead. And he also spoke about what was his initial conversation with the US president. He says, I talked to US president over the phone a short while ago and asked him how long the US military operations against Iran would go on. Jonathan Karl asked Donald Trump, how long do you think this will last? And Donald Trump told him, as per Jonathan Karl, as long as we want it to, actually, but it's done such damage already. It's like they are incapacitated, essentially. I asked him what happens next if the regime falls. Jonathan Karl asked him this question, what do you think the next leadership looks like? Have you identified anybody? To which he said, yes, we have a very good idea. Who, how? He did not elaborate beyond that.
All right, Sushant Sareen, thank you, Sagarika, very much for getting us that update. Commander Jaitley, you can come in as well. Maybe I'll go to Sushant and General Dhillon, and anyone can honestly weigh in on this. Sushant, the point is that Donald Trump can say what he wants to say, but I want to understand how this is a preemptive strike. I'm asking you this question because people in the Pentagon have briefed the US Congress saying they don't have any intelligence that suggested that the Iranians were going to strike any military bases, any US military bases in the Middle East. So if their own Pentagon is briefing the Congress saying aisa kuch nahi tha, the president is going out on a limb seeming to suggest that this is a preemptive strike.
So, look, Shreya, you are asking me the impossible question, and, you are asking me to explain Donald Trump and what he is saying, which I don't think anybody can really. Now, this was clearly not a preemptive strike. The fact of the matter remains that the Americans were building up their arsenal. Correct. They had brought in their armada, and it was very clear that the war clouds were hovering over the region. Now, unless it is the case that the Americans had brought that entire military arsenal to bear and the armada was all placed, and then there was a fear that the Iranians could initiate the first strike, and the Americans preempted that by striking first, then maybe, yes, Donald Trump has a point, but there is no indication that the Iranians were actually spoiling for a fight. Whether we like the regime or not, correct, the fact of the matter remains that the Iranian, the desire in Iran was to avoid this fight by whatever means possible. And even if you look at the kind of negotiations that were going on, despite the fact that the Americans were shifting the goalposts constantly, the Iranians were engaging with them and trying to effect some kind of a compromise that would keep their dignity intact and still prevent war and still give them some options. And those avenues were closed when this so-called preemptive strike took place. So there's nothing preemptive about it. It was by design. But yes, politicians and leaders will say whatever they feel they need to say to justify their actions. But clearly the facts on the ground are contrary to this particular assertion.
Here are the 2 things that Donald Trump has said within a couple of hours. He's saying this is a preemptive strike. I got Khamenei before he got me. So that is one explanation he's giving of the strikes, to say that Iran was planning a strike on us, so we struck back. On the other hand, he has also told another network that he struck simply because he realized in the talks in Geneva on Thursday that Iran was unwilling to give up its ambitions on a nuclear bomb. So he has to decide why he struck Iran. He'll give one reason to one media house and another reason to another media house, and not expect people to put things together. Give me a minute here.